keep a nigga tactics. So way back when, way back in the day, in the South, during chattel slavery, various tactics was made to discourage slaves from attempting to escape. Of course, there's the physical tactics, the threat of the whip and threat of being maimed, having your foot cut off or other various body parts cut off for the attempt. But there were also psychological ploys used to keep one on the plantation indefinitely. Now, one of which is, of course, encouraging family. Now, of course, they didn't encourage marriage or what have you in any traditional sense because that would humanize them. And this was a positive way to keep, positive and inexpensive, by the way. This was a positive way to keep a slave on the plantation. And this is primarily focused on the male slaves because, let's face it, they had higher productivity on the field and therefore their production values were higher. Now, the female slave may have been sold for more on the market, but that's simply because they produce males. Now, this was a positive way to keep the slave on the plantation. You're not going to leave your wife, your kids. You can't, it's very difficult for you to, carry them with you. So, yeah, you're pretty much stuck, nigga, is the way they looked at it. That was, I guess, what you would call the carrot, so to speak. Well, really, it's all carrots. I mean, the stick would be the whip or, the maiming things that I was talking about before. So, there was another way to keep them in line. And that was they would hire somebody to the propagandists. Now, these propagandists would come. Some of them are religious figures, and some of them are just like regular niggas. These niggas are paid or coerced to go from plantation and plantation and convince slaves to stay on the plantation. Now, some of them use religious propaganda, as I mentioned before, but others used other tactics. Now, today is the follow through of the Marco Grande piece that I did yesterday. This is more like the part two, but not really because it veers off into a different topic. But I want to show you how the techniques that they used against people like Marco Grande is also used against the slaves. Now, I want you to picture Marco Grande as a free northerner or a freedman who just in a fancy chariot strolled onto a plantation and showed everybody that, this is what it's like to be free. Look at all the food I eat. Look at my shoes. It shines so brightly. Look at my hat. Look at my ascot. This is the shit. Shit like that. Things that tantalize the imagination of the slaves who felt bound to this lifestyle. So, here are the tactics that they used to counteract the image of the proudly and happily freedman. Distance shaming. So just like yesterday, I told you that number one was distance shaming, which means that, oh brother, you gotta travel. You travel halfway across the world for these chicks. You travel all this way for these chicks. Same thing. The North is very, 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 very far. Now, slave may not know exactly how far the North is, but this person, this charlatan, will try to convince you that it is further than it is. You know, because money. All right, number two. Why not darker skinned women? So the person on the plantation who is trying to convince you to stay will say, there are darker skinned women here. Why are you trying to leave your dark skinned sisters? Don't you know that all these northern women are mixed or white? You're a colorist. If you don't stay on this plantation, it means that you hate yourself. You hate your nose, you hate your features because you want to go to the north to get with those white women or even mixed ones. which of course is de facto white to the person who's spewing this propaganda. Number three, local men will attack you. Basically, now they did have the Fugitive Slave Act and things like that, but basically what they are insinuating is that if too many slaves go up north, for whatever reason, the North would rebel against the newly found labor force. Now, just to be clear, that never actually happened, but it sounded good. Now, what actually happened was the North united with the slaves, the freedmen, the self freedmen, and the legally freedmen to fight the South, the institution of slavery. Just saying. All right, number four, you couldn't cut the mustard. So this would be the charlatan. Now keep in mind that these are all tactics that just yesterday I told you was used against men who are trying to, which is used against passport bros. Let's just say that. So the same methods that are used against passport bros are also used against runaway slaves. The exact same ones. You couldn't cut the mustard. It's hard down here for a slave. Only a true slave, only a real nigga can put up with this. Don't you know that this is the block? Or excuse me. This is the quarters. You can't cut it in the quarters. These are the quarters. Can't hang in the quarters. That type of talk. As if there is some virtue in slavery or being able to survive harsh conditions that doesn't benefit you at all. Number five, it's so many beautiful black women here. And yes, that's true. A slave on a plantation will probably find himself in the company of many beautiful black women. But he doesn't have his freedom. And who's to say that it's not beautiful black women in the North? Oh, the charlatan is. Number six, you can't build a legacy with a foreign woman. So I guess the equivalent in this situation is you can't build a legacy with a northern woman. Now, keep in mind that if he were to free himself and find himself up north, he would find a northern woman and, build a legacy. Yes, she's black, but she's not from the South, or she wasn't born in the South or anything like that. She wasn't a slave. So if you remember the movie 12 Years a Slave, he was married with kids and everything. That was his legacy. That's the legacy a free person can build. But a charlatan, of course, would try to convince you to stay. Let's see. You don't speak the language. Yes, there is a language barrier in slavery. Now, of course, this will be exaggerated by the charlatan, the person who is attempting to keep you on the plantation. He will say that, oh, them northerners, they speak that different kinds of English. They don't like the way you niggers talk. They don't understand it, them boys in Boston. Them boys in Illinois, them boys in Maine, they don't understand the way we be speaking. You might as well just go on and stay here with the people that understand you best. Language is one of the many barriers that one would have to do to escape an oppressive system. It's one of the many obstacles that you would have to overcome. However, freedom has its benefits. But once again, this person will not tell you the benefits. All right, number eight, and remember this was the one I crossed out. I didn't write it back, but I kind of remember what it is. You plan to treat others better than how they treat you. Now, this is an interesting one. as it would apply to a slave with notions of freedom. Because basically, the equivalent would be you plan to work harder in the North than you do in the South. And the short answer to that, that an intelligent slave would say, is yes. Yes, I would. You see, as a slave, is to your only motivation to work is to not get your ass beat, which means if the limit of the amount, the line, the threshold, how many pounds of cotton to pick to not get your ass whooped is how many you will pick. So if they say it's 100 pounds of cotton, then you will pick 100 pounds of cotton exactly. If they say, it's 110, you will pick 110 pounds exactly. If you picked 111 pounds, you just take it off. You take off a pound and save it for tomorrow. Less picking that way. You have one less pound to pick tomorrow. Hell, you could save up some pounds and take a day off. Maybe that's it. But you will just meet the basic quota. However, if you're in the north and you're paid for your labors, then you pick as many as you can because you're paid. If they say, I'll give you 10 cents, I'll give you a dime for every pound that you pick, then you want to pick 200. So you get that $20 per day. So yes, you are going to treat it differently because it is different. You're actually being rewarded for your efforts. It's positive reinforcement versus negative reinforcements. So yes, you will treat your labors in the north far different than you treat your labors in the south. And a man who is expatting will, well, let's not get into that. And finally, they are with you for your green card. Um, there really isn't a much of a slave equivalent to that, except for, I guess the charlatan would say they only want you for your cheap labor. To which you can reply, good, because that's what I have. And I only want them for they're paying me for my cheap labor, which is something you're not doing here. So thank you. I'm about to go. They will leave you once you get here. Now, I guess the slavery equivalent to that would be if you go to the north and come back, you will lose everything that you have worked for in the north. And there's definite truth in that. I guess the solution to that problem is don't come back. Nevertheless, the technique mirrors each other almost completely. Right now, fellas, we live in a extraordinarily oppressive system to men of all races. To remain in this oppressive system means that you have the mind state of a slave. Now, those who are here because their mothers, or I shouldn't say mothers, their wives and mothers of their children live here will be very similar to the slaves that were on a plantation because they were supporting a family. However, the others who don't have families to support, which is the vast majority of black men, I see no reason to stay unless you are being convinced by the same types of charlatans that attempted to keep you on the plantation in the first place. So Marco has showed us the north. Oh, excuse me. I mean the south. And despite what you might read on Wikipedia or anything like that, it is not hostile towards blacks. They have their own areas that's 98% black. You see, people, both black and white, man and woman, will do anything to keep you away. They'll spread their propaganda to the ends of the plantation to keep you here. Everybody wants you to stay and endure poor treatment. Everybody! Each and every single one of these motherfuckers. Black men. The white man wants you to stay to exploit your labors. They've already invested in you and your free education, free lunches, free breakfast, and all that shit. They want their money back. They want you out purchasing consumer goods. They want your labors. They want to tax your labors. Everything. And that's fine as long as there's a reward in it for you. The white women, they probably just want you to stay for some BBC. And the black women, well, let's not get into that. So, fellas, in conclusion, I want to say, once again, I'm not SYSBM. You want to know why? Because family is a valid motivation to stay. And of course, economic income. Absent these reasons, there is no reason to stay. If you don't have these things, then what are you here for? And that is the harsh truth that the charlatans don't want you to know. They want you to stay merely for the possibility of family or the goods of society. That's what they want from you because they believe that they can sell that to you. And they want you to believe that they can sell that to you. They are trying to sell you freedom on the plantation. I shit you not. Fellas, do better, learn more, seek happiness, seek family the best way you can. This is Game Changer 00100, and I'm gone. Peace.